So we are Piolet Labs, an education technology company that enables educators to instantly identify knowledge gaps of students. So a little bit about myself. I'm 19 years old. I'm part of the 20 Under 20 TL Fellowship that gives resources to students to skip college and work on projects that cannot wait. So I said, why not? And ever since graduating high school, I've put together a team of 5 with extensive credentials. Ex-Google, Khan Academy, Apple, sort of Master of Education degree holders, the right credentials required to solve an education problem. So very early on, we asked ourselves, what is the problem in education? And very quickly, we realized that teachers are burdened. They are presented with wide spectrums of students who could be Albert Einstein or Britney Spears. And the only way teachers find out about their performance is weeks out in the form of standardized scores. So we say that the feedback loop is categorically broken. Students fall. It could be something benign, like you missed a class in 9th grade, and by 12th grade you have 4 years of coursework lagging behind. And if teachers are burdened, well, administrators are quite helpless. They are making decisions on really bad data. So we saw this whole macro problem and thought that we shouldn't build a vertical solution, but instead focus on building an end-to-end solution that caters the needs of all these users. So the first aspect of our platform is enabling educators, institutions, and publishers to create interactive content very quickly. The next aspect is obviously delivering that content to students seamlessly on any device they own. But here's where things get interesting. In this case, a student is reading organic chemistry on his iPad. Turns out, the mere act of reading is a data point. In fact, while you're studying, you're creating millions and millions of such data points. So what do? We collect it all. We analyze it, organize it, and form an output that looks something like this. In an instant, the teacher can say which student is going forward, which student is going backwards, see some more engagement metrics. But the real pinnacle of our analysis are these statements that appear below. Something like, hey Andre, 5 of the 7 students struggling in your class don't know concepts A, B, and C. Or how about, hey Namik, you're struggling in calculus concept 3 because you have forgotten trigonometry formula 7. Although judging by your Harvard degree, that's probably not the case. So insights, not data. The type of traction we have received is we have signed up some of the largest private K-12 providers in the world. One of them is GEMS Education, which has about 150,000 students in 26 countries, from Beijing to Chicago. And we have also signed up a university you might have heard of, the University of Cambridge. And a couple of governments, such as the UAE government and the Turkish government, and we just signed a deal with ACARA, the assessment consortium in Australia. So what they are doing is they're building a content library to build a private marketplace on top of our platform. The idea is the marketplace currently in the Asia Pacific is completely underserved and widely unsaturated. And we think that just focusing on Manasa alone, we can make about $300 million in recurring revenue. But that is just part of the story. We think that we can go further by charging schools on a per-student basis and tap really into that large exponential growth of 33% year over year worldwide due to the bring-your-own-device strategy. We think that in terms of the competition, the lower-hand side, the canvases and blackboards of the world are sprinting backwards in a marathon, whereas the smart companies like Newton and Mastery Connect have a lot of hurdles to be adopted in classrooms. And the Coursera's and the Udemy's of the world, we think of them as future partners. And of course, Piolet lies on the top right-hand side. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Piolet. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
So, we made a couple of
Okay.
K to 12. Very, very difficult.
Absolutely.
Teachers are very overwhelmed, administrators are overwhelmed, and students are with the amount of tools out there trying to do everything. Right? So it's a very difficult market to really grow at scale and show traction.
Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think it's so difficult?
Because they're overwhelmed. I mean,
I'll tell you why they're overwhelmed.
You're going to answer my question.
100 million solutions. Nobody is providing an end-to-end solution to a large problem. Everybody is focused on these vertical areas. Oh, I'm going to do communication. Oh, I'm going to do classroom management. What happens is students don't care. They want a solution where they just enter a device and it's a user experience designed around them rather than the decision maker.
So you have 184,000 students.
Yeah.
Right? What percent is active?
So about 35% has been deployed of that 185,000 students in these private schools. Because so many of these schools are so distributed in 26 countries, it's very hard for us to deploy at once because there's a whole bunch of training that is required. And from that, we have seen significant results. We have seen an upwards of 93% in course finish rate compared to something like an edX, which is something like 2.5%. But let's go a little bit further. Finish rates is just one thing. What about something called mastery level? That's our algorithm that can predict your understanding in a particular topic. We have seen mastery levels from a starting point, say you started the course today, and you completed it 2 weeks later. We have seen it increase by something like 33%. On average. So that means that when mastery levels are increasing, we're increasing standardized scores by 30%. So that's very significant.
Free right now?
No, it's not free. We're actually projecting upwards of $1.5 million revenue in 2015.
How are you charging? What's the
Per student basis.
$8?
Yeah, so $8 is just one model, but we think that's not the most competitive area to be charging schools on a per student basis because they'll just negotiate. So it ends up not being $8, something like $5.
Question about content creation.
Okay, that's a great question.
There's a whole bunch of experiments right now.
All right.
Between online and offline modes of learning. HDX is experimenting with things that EDX cannot do. So
Okay.
what are your thoughts around that? And it's not just mastery of concepts, but whether they stick around. So just give me some idea about how you're thinking about this new way of thinking about content.
So we think that our platform is kind of like the iPod of education, kind of like the best education platform which a K-12 provider can use in their schools. But we think that the real large opportunity in terms of economy and reducing friction is by building a marketplace, an iTunes to the iPod. And we are actually working with our friends out there, McGraw-Hill, Chegg, Pearson, and a couple of other organizations, 13 publishers cumulatively, to present the most cutting-edge content of the 21st century. This is significant and very different from importing content because when you import large sets of content, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're highly efficacious. What we do is we figure out a way to import large sets of content and instantly make them interactive. So we're just trying to sort of upgrade the curve of all these content providers, and therefore we think that we are just so far ahead of the curve when compared to something like an edX, or let's say Chegg has 200,000 PDFs and they want to give a provider to sort of use it in their courseware. We think that we can just make that entire set incredibly immersive.
What percent of the students are paying?
Students don't pay. Schools pay.
What percent are paying now?
All of them.
All of them?
So we don't. So it's all based on success metrics and those types of things. Yeah.
You use the camera to track the eyes?
No. That's a scary idea. We're not the NSA. Not yet. Although, I'll tell you something which we are doing. We just hired a CIA consultant to help us build the future of hiring people in the enterprise. We are figuring out a way, which the CIA figured out 50 years ago, how do you measure competencies? And I'm not talking about competencies such as merely, the reading or writing what we do today, but competencies like problem-solving skills.
Thumbs up.
Thank you.